So last week, the BlackThornProd Game Jam took place, and I knew that I couldn't miss the chance of participating, seeing how I missed every other game jam he hosted. So I teamed up with my friend Avery to make a game within a week. Now typically, I've only participated in short-term game jams, but seeing as I'm trying to try new things this year, I thought, why not? Now before we begin, I would greatly appreciate it if you were to subscribe. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. On Saturday at 9 AM, the theme was released of Less is More. Me and Avery went straight to brainstorming and spent an hour trying to develop the best idea. We needed an idea that was unique enough that no one would make a similar game, but simple enough to actually fit the theme. After many trash ideas, we came up with this one. Essentially, we want to make a puzzle platformer game, where the player can select different props in the level. Once 2 props are chosen, the player will then choose an operator, either less than, more than, or equal to. This will then compare object 1 and 2 and scale it accordingly. For example, selecting less than will make the first object smaller than the second one. More than will increase the size, equal will match it. Essentially, this will show you that sometimes less is actually more. We also decided to add a storyline to the game that also fits the theme. I created a new Unity project and shared it via Collaborate. We decided to divide the roles a bit better than in our previous game jams. I would do the art, graphics, particles and other polished things, while Avery would work on the programming. Though we both can program, this made it easier to get more done. While Avery was making the platforming mechanics, I started creating the player in Photoshop. After many failed attempts, I came up with this dude. I created some basic animations for him and set it up in Unity. By the time I was done, so was Avery, so we had a basic platformer with this little player. It was now time to implement the main mechanic, which Avery did fairly quickly with the use of a lerp function and some comparing statements. While I worked on some sprites for the props, I created this cool crate and also this little metal block. After putting it together in Unity, this is the basic mechanic of the game. As you can see, I can compare objects to one another by selecting them and choosing an operator. I then worked on some background art. I created some ground textures to use throughout the level. I also decided to stick to this cartoony-esque theme, therefore I outlined everything in black. This is an early version of the game. As you can see, the background was nice and cheery and cute and all, but I needed to make it more darker as the player is actually meant to be stuck in a nightmare. So I changed up the aesthetic. I made the background a dark purple colour and created some trees to make it look like he's in a forest. You know, to make it moody and all. While doing this, Avery worked on the main menu and its functionality. The main menu is just a simple game manager and some UI buttons. Now because the game is going to have numerous levels, he created an array to hold all the different levels. Now arrays can't actually hold scenes, so he just made a string array that would load the scene with the name that you input. After doing this, we both decided that it would be cool to create some bedroom props and place them around the map, to illustrate that the character is still in his bedroom, but just stuck in a nightmare, as the scenery has changed drastically. This is also just to make the map look more interesting and more full. So I spent quite a few hours just creating random props. Now while you watch a time-lapse of me working on the game, here are some various props I made. After creating all the props, I scattered them around the map to fill it up. I then wanted to actually create some sprites for the main menu. To make the game feel more childish, I actually created a font out of my handwriting, using a website called Calligrapher. This took some time and tweaking, but generally speaking, I think the font definitely fits the aesthetic. I created numerous titles and buttons and background elements, and ended up with this main menu. Here is the actual menu. It takes place all in one scene and uses a lerp function to move between the 2 different areas. The buttons also change colour and size when hovered over. This makes them feel better and actually have impact. This was really simple to actually make, it's just really canvas items and UI elements. I also made some simple leaf sprites that I dropped into the menu to give it more game feel and polish. Once again, we added some lights for ambience and effect. So the game mechanics were implemented into the game. It was now time to do some level creation/design. I picked up my notepad and started mapping out some levels. This genuinely seemed harder than I thought. Both me and Avery aren't the best at level design, but actually in the end I think we both became quite a lot better. So here is a little time lapse of me making some levels on paper. After creating them on paper, I went and created them inside of Unity. Both me and Avery created a variety of levels totaling to 15. I then created some extra sprites and placed them around the map as decorations, some which were animated and some just plain. Avery then worked on a breakable glass object that required a heavier/larger block to be on top of it to break it. I once again made the sprites. This feature made the puzzle more interesting and dynamic. I also had the idea of creating a fan that can push the player in smaller objects, so Avery implemented that too, once again resulting in better levels. At this point, all the levels were finished. Avery decided to work on some music and sound effects. Funnily enough, all the sound effects were created by Avery's mouth, but of course they were tweaked in Audacity. While he was doing this, I started creating some drawings for cutscenes. We wanted to have a narration and a story to go with the game, so I made multiple cutscenes for various aspects of the game, resulting in around 9 different drawings. This process took a really long time to try and get perfect, and also there was quite a few drawings to make. Avery also created some narration to go with it, and narration throughout the game. We were going for a sort of Thomas Was Alone aesthetic with the narrator. After completing all of that, we made a system that would play the cutscenes and add the narration plus some subtitles. We put all the sounds together into Unity, and essentially the game was nearly done. I then created some buttons for little features, like a restart button, help, mute, etc. We really wanted to ensure that the player understood how the game worked, which is why we wanted to gradually introduce the player to new mechanics. This required a tutorial system. Avery worked on the programming while I created all of the art. Here is an example of one of the tutorials. I really like the aesthetic and I think it definitely fits within the game. We also created some arrows in certain levels to instruct the player on what to do. This actually came out to be super helpful when we had people playtest it. I essentially finished all of the art, so I decided to make some particles for polish and all. I made about 10 different particles, some for the player, others for the scene, etc. So that essentially is our game. Now I'm going to play through some levels to show it to you. But once again, this is a puzzle game, so I don't want to reveal too much. The download for this game is down below. It's available for Windows, Mac and Linux, so anyone can play it, and I would highly appreciate it if you were to rate the game. Anyway, let me get into some gameplay. Okay guys, so we are actually in the game. I'm not going to play through all of it because that's kind of defeating the point of you playing it. If you press start game, that will show you the cutscene and the story. Now I'm going to leave that for you guys to discover, so we're just going to hop straight into level 1. So level 1 will actually introduce you to basic platforming, because this is a platforming/puzzle game, and we want this game to be available to anyone, even if you have no experience with platforming. So, once again, it's just A and D to move around, space to jump like so, and yeah, you just gotta avoid the toxic water and go into the portal.
Timothy recognized the furniture from his room, but the spikes were certainly new.
As you heard there right now, there is also narration throughout the game. It's sort of like a Thomas Was Alone kind of aesthetic that I talked about earlier, but it's pretty cool in my opinion. So, this is the last level I'm going to go through. This is a platforming level once again. There's 3 of them, and then you go on to kind of more advanced stuff where you play with blocks and their sizes. Then we get glass blocks, and fans. But yeah, this is just the basic platforming. This is the harder one, which apparently some people had issues with. I understand why, because the movement is a rigid body and it is physics-based, so you can gain momentum. I will point that out as well. So yeah guys, this is the game. Once again, I don't want to go through all of it because that's going to defeat the point. But yeah, if you go to level select, you can go ahead and play any levels. They will be locked if you have not played them through. However, I have unlocked all of them. It does also save, I will say that. Once you close the game, your progress will save, which is pretty cool. But yeah guys, this is the game we created. I would highly appreciate it if you were to rate it. It's going to help us out a lot. Playing the game, also let us know of any feedback so that we can do better on our next game jam. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, you know what to do. And also, massive thank you to all my Patreons. I appreciate you so much, it's just unbelievable. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!